It's time now for the Sports Objective Podcast. No talking heads, just guys who love sports. Here's Dave Richmond.
Welcome into the Sports Objective Podcast, our weekend podcast, as we have, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from LaGrange. It's Kyle from LaGrange Barber. How are you, man?
What's going on, dude?
Well, I actually, before we started recording, I actually did, believe it or not, I had to fire the lawn person, so I've had to do the yard work, unfortunately. But, one of these days, maybe we get rich from the podcast, I can have a whole crew of people out here.
Now, look, Dave, if you need a good lawn man, there's Frankie Barber Lawn Service.
Oh, that's right. I'll have to call, whenever I'm out of town.
That's right. If you are in the Martin County area, anywhere in the Martin County area, you need your grass cut, contact Frankie Barber.
I forgot your dad did that. Yeah, whenever.
I don't know the last four of my dad's numbers. Contact me if you need your lawn cut.
Well, if I ever go to jail or if I'm out of town, like on a long vacation, I'll call your dad to come over here and help us out for that time being. So
okay. Sounds good.
That's my future plans, I guess. Bubba Rosenbaum, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Hope you guys are.
Yeah, he's Bubba, I know, and Kyle. I'm actually out here in my backyard, and so enjoying things. I know, Kyle, we're having lunch with you and Bubba. I know you just got done eating.
Yeah. I did. One of my high school teammates, high school football teammates, his dad unfortunately passed away.
Oh man.
So getting ready to go to a funeral here in a little bit.
I'm very sorry to hear that. That's the part of life that really sucks, for sure. And my heart and prayers go out to the family because it's never easy, for sure. I haven't had to deal with that yet, but at some point I will. Let's talk positive stuff. Let's talk good stuff, guys, with the Pirates. Very excited. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. We've got, before we get to our roundtable, Bubba, let's talk about our two great guests that were kind enough to come on.
Yeah, very excited to catch up with Stephen Igoe of Hoist the Colors, and then also Zach Maskavich.
And despite rumors that Stephen Igoe is wanting to perpetrate and Hoist the Colors, he is not also me. I am me and he is him. So when you hear that interview, that's not him going in and out of character. That is me.
You do I will give you credit, Kyle. You do very good impressions, but you can't do Stephen that well.
Well, that would be the other way around. Igoe would be doing me because he says I'm his alter ego.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I'll get it straight.
Okay. Speaking of good impressions, in an upcoming episode, we'll catch up with former Cincinnati head coach from 94 to 2003, and then also he'd been the defensive coordinator a couple different times at Notre Dame, South Carolina. Rick Minner will be on the show, and he does a heck of a Lou Holtz impersonation.
It's a very understated Lou Holtz, Bubba. He didn't do it over the top. A lot of people do over the top Lou Holtz.
Yeah,
I want to tell you. But his was very understated, which made it seem more legitimate, like it was really Lou Holtz.
Right. It's like it's so bad now where he's a perfect example of a coach where there's such a legendary coach and had, of course, a great career on ESPN and all that and great speaker. And people, it's like a caricature of the man instead of, like that.
Yeah, but
very
love. Most people do it out of love. Most people, most people don't like Lou Holtz, but most people do it out of love.
No, I know. I'm just saying that it's the same thing with like Going with the Wind with Scarlett O'Hara. The
right.
accent is so over the top that it's people copying people who've copied people for many, many years. That movie is way old.
The best example I know, Dave, whenever I do Harry Carey, I'm really doing Will Ferrell doing Harry Carey.
Right, exactly. It's a copy of the impersonation of the. So, anyway, we look forward to that. Appreciate you guys. By the way, guys, before we talking about our roundtable, again, our discussions, because we're good at that. Please, I want to give all three of us, and I'll speak for you guys if you want to chime in. Thank you for the 50 for 50, 50 Pirates in 50 days. You guys it's been booming. We actually had no idea that it would be a huge response. We thought it would be, but it's always great when the three of us have an idea. We roll with it. Bubba's been working hard, scheduling all the different Pirate players, and I'm sure we'll have coaches. And so thank you, Bubba, for all your hard work behind the scenes. And, guys, I just want to say that before I forgot, before we get deep into discussion about Pirate news.
Yeah, and Bubba's big surprise to close out 50 Pirates in 50 days. He's got Vince McMahon. That's going to be number 50, so everybody look forward to that.
Yeah. Bubba's going to be working
pressure
for like the next 20, 30 days Please, Kyle's like, promise we're going to have you on, sir. All right, pal. Yeah, so.
Yeah, when I think about Vince McMahon in terms of East Carolina, I think about that 2008 game against West Virginia where he did the intro. And he said, "Go Pirates, go."
It would be more like this, Bubba. Hold on, let me swallow this right. Go Pirates, go!
What he said? He said, Pat White and the Mountaineers. You better get ready for the SmackDown or something. He said they're going down for the count.
Every wrestling pun imaginable.
Yeah.
Hey, that's quite all right with me. I'd love to have Vince McMahon, not only the podcast, but certainly donate a lot of money. Guys, I want to mention to you that you know how much I love the basketball program at East Carolina, and very happy with the floor. What did you guys think about the new floor they put down?
Good. It looks good. I like it a lot, actually.
It really pops, don't you think?
Yeah, it looks good. Sorry, swallowing rice again. It looks good. A lot brighter. You know, I love the Pirate State of Mind on the football field. Never cared for it much on the basketball court. I think this looks really good, really slick.
It really does. And now, if I can ever get
how slick does it look, Bubba?
I think it looks very slick, and I will not use the analogy you're alluding to.
How about I know what he's going to say. Too.
But
yeah, let's keep.
I don't want to offend any of our listeners, but I'm sure the ones that were into that sort of thing know where you're going with that.
Certainly. You know, the interesting thing I was going to mention, guys, is the very fact that with Dooley, we're going to talk with Igoe about the recruiting. How about the fact that we're talking about basketball and we're almost in August? Normally we'd be just talking about football only. We're going to talk about football today, I'm sure, but I just want to mention to you guys, I'm very excited as a basketball fan at East Carolina that we have a reason to celebrate with the recruiting, with the great coaching staff, with the improvements that, thank God for John Gilbert. We're going to have Ryan Robinson on next week, by the way, folks, and we're going to be talking to him about things that we can do. There's little things, as my parents used to say, it's the little things. What's the little things we can do to really amp up the visibility at as far as I know everything is big now with graphics, a lot of visual stuff, and
right.
A lot of things in Minji's. And when people, I know you guys are not of this crowd, but the crowd that says that we have no money and we can't do all this stuff, we can't compete, it just drives me nuts, because the little things like that they're already doing since the beginning of this year with this new administration shows that we can make improvements without, being UConn and getting $40 million in debt.
Hey, that's not what you were talking about. UConn's exit fee, if I saw that correctly, $17 million.
Yes, nice segue there.
I don't see how they're going to remain at FBS in football with the debt they have and having to pay that $17 million exit. If they don't drop down to FCS football, if they don't make that announcement in the next 6 months, I will be shocked.
I think, let's face it, they don't care about football. That's obvious. And I think that you're exactly right, Kyle. We've talked about that off the air, on the air. I think that's the way UConn used to be. And if they want basketball, and it's okay if that's their right. If they want basketball to be the primary sport, which I think it is at UConn, and they want to put all their money there, and the cliche, all the eggs in one basket, so to speak. They've got other great programs, but I think you and I, all of us know on this podcast and beyond, that football stirs a drink. I just don't understand why you would leave the American. I understand all the other stuff. I'm just saying, making the point of, you're going to leave the American, and if the American, hypothetically, if the American becomes Power 6, we're the sixth league to be a power league, then you've really done yourself a huge disservice. I think it's a great move for the fans sentimentally. I think it's a great move in the short term, but it's a huge gamble, because we could, in 5 or 6 years, guys, we could be at a different level.
Well, I think what they've done is ensured themselves that they never are going to be in a power conference. They better be happy playing in the Big East, because that's where they're going to stay.
Right.
I just don't see, at least in the short term, with the budget issues they have, unless it's a huge influx of money coming from private donations, I just don't see with the budget issues they have, $40 million in debt, and then the $17 million exit fee. And I don't know how that's going to be structured. I didn't look into that. But
would you say it's over a handful of years? It's not $17 million at one time. It's a handful of years, right?
That's typically how it
is.
is. That's typically how it works. I don't know. You know, we're not too pleased with UConn right now. So how flexible are we going to be?
Right.
So I just don't see how they stay FBS at football. I mean, I just don't see it. They got a huge scheduling problem for next football season. Right now, there is no FBS teams with open dates. So that means unless somebody moves some things around for them, they're going to be playing 4 FBS non-conference. Well, the 4 FBS non-conference opponents they have scheduled now, plus 8 FCS games. So
they may have to do that if they're. I mean, that will be the only way they could get around that, right? For a few years.
Well,
a couple years.
The NCAA may allow them to keep their FBS status for 1 year doing that, but
that's true. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah, by the following year, they're going to have, I'm sure, at least half their schedule will be FBS.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. But here's another thing, too, guys. It's the very fact that with that amount of money, I'm wondering. I want to get you guys' take on this. I was wondering. This thought came to mind several weeks ago when they made the announcement. I didn't mention it. Do you guys think that with the amount of support of moving to the Big East and being with the people that are sentimental, the fans, and I get that. They're trying to look after the fans. Do you think there's going to be enough donations now since they did what basically the fans wanted them to do instead of doing the right thing? Do you think there'll be more money coming in?
I think in time their finances will improve from that standpoint, but
not right now.
No. I just I think, and I think they're going to explore every option, but without the MAC or somebody like that coming forward and saying, "Hey, come on in, football only," these thoughts that they're going to make it as an independent in football. I mean, UMass is doing it, so technically UConn could. I just don't see what the budget was they have, and now having to pay that extra fee. That I just don't see them doing it.
Well, not only that, but guys, they also, in my opinion, it's almost like Jeff Compher's up there. It's great to have the sentimental thing of I understand the Big East thing. Now, I grew up with the ACC Big East Challenge, and the Big East was kind of like back then, was like the rival as far as basketball conferences. I get all the rivalries. I understand all that. But what's coming up for me is the very fact of you did what's right for the fans, but yet in the short term, but the long term, man, you're right, Kyle, with the scheduling. When you start thinking about that, there's no wiggle room. So in other words, the plan was for basketball, but yet if you're Randy Edsall, it's like a man without a country, a man without a home now. I mean, and another thing is essentially you've killed recruiting. If you're a guy and you're a good athlete in the Northeast or wherever across the country and you wanted to go to UConn for football, I don't know why you would, but if you did, or you had any hope to get a kid, now you pretty much have ruined the next, 3 or 4 years recruiting, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know at this point, the appeal of going to UConn in the near future. I mean, if they go independent and are able to show that they can put together a competitive schedule with some big-name teams, then maybe it would be appealing. And they could levy basketball to do that with certain schools. Hey, you come play us in football, home and home, or come to your place in basketball, if the basketball program's willing to do that. But I just, like I say, I think they were hoping that the American would let them stay in football only. I don't know why they thought that.
That's correct. They were.
And, part of me wonders if they thought it was a kind of a catch with ESPN. Technically, UConn isn't leaving. They're still a member of the conference. So we don't have to change our TV contract. Well, it appears ESPN really don't give two craps that UConn's leaving.
Right. And another thing, there was leverage. They thought they had leverage.
Yeah.
And they were told back in the spring, guys, when we first talked to Dom back about basketball season, I think it was February or March, somewhere in there, when the rumors were swirling around about all this, and we went in discussions back on our podcast a few months back. The commissioner and the people in the league told them that was not on the table at all. If you leave on every sport, In other words, if you leave, football.
Yeah, why would we do that? I mean,
that's dumb.
There's two reasons. One, their football program's trash. Two, it's just the president. If we do it for them, then what's to say Cincinnati that won't enjoy the
right? And who else can it opens up?
And their football is actually worth keeping. So I mean, you know, it's you don't want to do that.
The members of, and another thing too is when they have these tricky deals like, I understand Navy and Wichita State, so don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, if it like the Notre Dames or the different ones, and we're not going to allow the football or whatever. That's one thing if you're Notre Dame. But I'm sorry, I think there's a, and I'm trying to be nice because I'm really not anti-UConn, but sometimes I think UConn thinks way too highly of themselves when it comes to their brand. They have won national championships in basketball and stuff, but
it's like somebody. To me, it's David. It's like somebody with a big last name, who
right.
You know, father's father was a millionaire, and then their grandfather was a millionaire, and then their dad was wealthy but not really a millionaire, and now you're around and you're not really anything. You're just an average guy, but you're still living off their name, and you think you're something you're not.
Right.
To me, that's UConn. They're living off of a legacy that they don't have anymore. But that's fine. And I mean, and we've beat this topic into the ground, but the ecstasy just brought it up again. There's something I want to touch on, and I won't touch on it too much because I think it needs to be done in a more appropriate manner with Wood here on the Philip Wood here on the podcast. But something that me and Bubba have noticed doing these interviews with these former players is the lack of involvement many of them have had with ECU football since they've left. And I know Kurt Dahl has been tasked with reaching out to former letter winners. But, you know, I don't know, you know, what the Pirate Club policy is. Maybe they are reaching out to them. But, you know, I do know personally that there's been some guys who have told us they've heard nothing from the Pirate Club, you know, since they've graduated, former players. And, you know, and that's not on the current administration. That's not on Philip Wood. He's only been here a couple of years. Pirate Club's been around a long time before Philip Wood was here. But to Philip and the guys that are there now, man, we need to reach out to these former players. Every former letter winner needs to hear personally from the Pirate Club, particularly in the major sports.
And to be fair too, I think that's the responsibility. And I'll double check with the guys. So we like them. So we're trying to be clear. We're not anti them. I think it's big guy Matt Maloney, in my understanding. I think he's kind of like the liaison for the former athletes. So we'll see.
Right. Well, whoever is, you know, there's guys who have specified this. They haven't heard anything from the Pirate Club, and maybe they don't have their current contact information. Maybe that's the problem. So maybe some of the guys need to reach out to the Pirate Club themselves. But you know,
it is a problem.
That's something that we need to make sure at ECU and with the Pirate Club. We are reaching out to these guys, and you know they want to be involved, but it's kind of, you know, some guys have egos, man, and you feel like you contributed to this school, and then they're not going to come approach me. Well, I'm not going to go run to them, and so you know I'd like to see the Pirate Club grow exponentially, and one way I think we can do that is by getting a lot of these letter winners involved. I mean, there's tons of them. Yeah,
and I'll tell you another thing. You're exactly right about, you hit on something for me, Kyle, that's opening up too, is the fact when you talk about the quote-unquote millionaires, we don't have enough millionaires. We don't have the rich uncles, unfortunately enough, or the big, you know, donors like we, you know. But the one thing that we do have is we do have a lot of great former athletes who they may, you know what, our good buddy Terry Gallagher is a perfect example of a guy who may not be a millionaire, but the guy contributes, the guy cares about the program. We could go on and on and on with a lot of great people, former letter winners. And if you look at all those athletes and you have some big event and you say, look guys, this is what we're up to. We've got this massive campaign. And whatever you can give. And I know there's some people that don't think the $100 matter, but it does matter, or the $500, the $1,000. That stuff starts to add up. And you get these former letter winners in a room, and you say, we need you. We need your support. We need, you know, this amount of dollars. Can you guys help us with former, for example, they may have contacts. You make a break point, Kyle, and Philip talked about that in the interview. of names, and sometimes we lose addresses or people change addresses. So names and emails are a lot of ways where they're going strategy now, or maybe social media or whatever, how to reach out to them instead of trying to send out stuff and mailers and stuff. When you may look at me, since I've been married, I've moved a few times. So they would not have like 3 times since I've been married. So, in just the last handful of years. So they would be sending stuff to me. I had this perfect example. They sent stuff to me at a previous address, and then I had to get that changed a few years ago. So
yeah, and all that's true, but I'll say this, Dave. How hard has it been for Mr. Bubba Rosenbaum to find these players?
Very difficult. He spends up, 20 hours a day, I think. Right, Bubba? I'm joking.
Bubba, you there with us, brother?
I don't know if we.
I think we've lost Bubba, but my point is, Bubba's able to get up with these guys. So. Yeah, and I'm not knocking anybody,
No.
I'm just stating a fact, and it needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think that because of the previous administration, there's a lot of people that are, that were so upset with all the stuff,
sure,
and we're not going to
definitely because of Ruff and
Right. And I'm not trying to rehash that. The point I'm making is the fact now is when you hear the cliche opportunity knocks. Now look at all this great stuff we've got going. People are excited. I just mentioned that earlier. Who in the hell would thought that we would be talking about basketball and all the great things that are happening about ECU basketball? We wouldn't be talking about basketball normally to September and October, and there would be a huge gap. And
I wouldn't talk about it until November. But that's
okay. Well, I know. I'm just saying before we would even be on any kind of radar.
Right.
Even
well,
just a little bit on the radar.
Class we put together, and if you'll find out in this interview later on from Igoe that recruiting ranking that a lot of people thought was a joke wasn't as big of a joke as some people thought it was.
I was happy to hear that too.
Yep. So but you want to go to that now?
Yeah, I was going to say that Steven's waiting for us, so let's go to that interview with Steven right now. Well, one of our favorite guests that we have on, and the very first guest ever on this podcast, is the founder of HoistTheColors.net and 24/7 Sports, Steven Igoe. Welcome in, man.
Yeah, it's always good to join you guys, and I appreciate you having me back on. And finally feels like football season, so I'm excited to get rolling.
It really does. Bubba and Kyle, I know that we've got a lot to talk about. Let's talk about basketball first. Since we've had you on, I know there's some basketball recruiting and the new basketball floor. Can we start there, Steven?
Yeah, a ton of basketball recruiting, obviously, and the main thing is it's not recruiting anymore. They're all in school, and they're all part of a team that looks a lot much more like a basketball team compared to last season. And I've been out. I've only seen one workout. They finished summer workouts, but it's incredible to see the difference in length, talent, athleticism, a lot of positivity around the program, talking to coaches, managers, all that sort of stuff out of the workout. Compared to this time last year, it was, hey, we're not going to be very good. Let's just get through this year. We're focused on recruiting. This year, it's, man, we really think we can surprise some people. So, honestly, at this point, I'm almost as fired up for basketball season as football season, and I think there's a lot to look forward to in that regard.
Steven, there was I don't remember the name of the site. It was something I had never heard of. I don't know what kind of metrics they're using. Hoop Scoop that had us as a top 10 recruiting class. Do you have any idea, was that just based on the volume of players signed? How did they come up with that?
So it definitely had a lot to do with the volume of players signed. From my understanding, and I don't have a subscription to the site, which is where you get the complete breakdown of it, but I think they obviously assign a kind of a point system, and each recruit gets a point. They evaluate every player in the country from major college basketball, and obviously if you sign 11 players, you're going to get a lot of points, and they have to be, they have to be quality players too, and they were. And from my knowledge, the guy who runs the site is very well respected in the industry. Like before 24/7 Sports Rivals, ESPN came along, this guy was doing recruiting rankings back in the day. So very well respected. A lot of coaches know him well. And I don't think it's one of those things where ECU basketball just made up the fact that they're a top 10 ranked class. It's more of a, this was a legit ranking by a site that maybe not a lot of people know, but they still do recruiting rankings. So, I think it's good marketing and definitely put it out there for ECU. What's the worst that can happen?
And what did 24/7 have our recruiting class ranked?
24/7 at ECU at 75th nationally, but that was without 3 or 4 guys ranked. And in my opinion, they had Batumba Baruti as a 2-star, J.J. Miles as a 2-star, and having seen Baruti now, he's easily a top-tier 3-star, if not a 4-star talent. So J.J. Miles easily a 3-star talent too. So in my opinion, I don't know if 24/7 evaluated those guys firsthand or what. And then you had both the JUCO bigs who didn't have a ranking, and I don't think Miles James had a ranking either. So 75th, which is still good for ECU basketball in its own right.
Oh, yeah. And not only that.
So you had those guys in, it probably wouldn't have been top 10, but it would have been even higher by 24/7. So, yeah, that's unbelievable Billy's been able to do that in 1 year.
In my opinion, I would put it as realistically speaking, a top 50 class. And, if you're among the top 50 schools in college basketball in East Carolina, that's a damn good recruiting class. So, I think it's definitely worthy of the praise. And there's so many factors that go in with the JUCOs, and you got some class balance with the class with the number of freshmen coming in. Some of the JUCOs have 3 years of eligibility remaining, so lots to be excited about for sure.
And not only that, Stephen, but just thinking about that when Kyle made the great point in you, but if it's top 50, that means we're knocking at the door, maybe not this year, but a year or two from making the tournament with that kind of talent.
Yeah, if it all comes together, and
we
know recruiting. Usually you're going to have some hits, you're going to have some misses. And I think from this point forward, the main thing this class does is not only elevates the talent, but, obviously you have only one scholarship senior in Sheffield Day, and you've already got a commitment. So it allows the staff to really be picky with who it recruits. And I think they're going to take an approach where every year from this point forward, you're going to try to bring in 2 to 3 guys, and you're going to have some guys that don't work out from this class most likely, and, you replace them with more talented guys. And I think each year you try to do that with whatever players don't work out, and you bring in 2 to 3 as talented guys, best available players type possible, and then eventually you get to the point where every player on your team is, in theory, an NCAA tournament type talent. So I think that's the approach the staff's taken. Steve Rockefort did it at Virginia Tech. Joe Dooley has obviously built a lot of talent through his days at Kansas and Florida Gulf Coast, and even back at ECU in his first stint. So, and Rafael Chilius, you look at what Washington did last year in the NCAA tournament, a lot of those guys were recruited by Coach Steele. So a ton of experienced coaches, and you just got to be patient. It's not all going to work out perfectly this year, but for the first time in a while, I think everybody's excited about the future of Pirate basketball.
And go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to make a real quick point, Kyle. And it's amazing, Stephen. Normally we would just be talking about right now with you about football. I'm just really shocked. It's July, almost August. We're talking about ECU basketball.
I know. I still can't get over it either. And every time we do a chat on Hoist the Colors or just any interaction on Twitter, I get a ton of basketball questions. So, but it's honestly a nice change of pace. And I've always been a big fan of ECU basketball. I wish more fans went to games. I obviously understand why they haven't, given the history. But it would be fun to cover a relevant basketball program nationally. So I think it'll get there for sure under the staff. It's just a matter of how long. But the building blocks are there now.
Kind of shifting gears to baseball. Here about a week ago, Dan Rozelle, I said it was made known that, and so he was headed to the University of Kentucky as their pitching coach. So what have you heard on that front in terms of Dan Rozelle's replacement?
Yeah, I don't have any specific names right now, but I do know the interview process has started and is ongoing. Knowing Cliff Goblin, I'll be surprised if they don't make a hire here shortly. He'll especially want somebody in place by the time the players come back for the fall semester. They've basically wrapped up summer workouts at this point. Summer strength and conditioning and all that stuff. You also got some players playing summer ball. But by the time the team gets back in August, he's going to want his pitching coach and his staff in place. He's already made a hire with the director of ops. And I expect a pitching coach maybe to be hired in the next week or so, depending on the details of the process and how long it takes to go through the official announcement and everything. But from what I've heard, there's a lot of interest, a lot of diverse candidates. You got some guys from like Big Ten schools that have experience. You got some guys from smaller schools, some guys with ECU ties. So there's a ton of interest, a ton of talent returning, and it'll be interesting to see, what direction Coach Galvin goes in. He's going to need a coach that's driven, that's motivated. He's going to have to fit his style, which is a very specific coaching style. But I expect him to make a hire, and, whether they upgrade at the position or not will be told in the long run. It'll be tough to replace Coach Rozelle's experience, but I think we'll get a very qualified candidate.
With Coach
Steven, have you heard?
I was just saying, with Coach Rozelle moving on, that also resulted in a much-deserved promotion for Jeff Palumbo.
Yeah, and him and Coach Godwin have done the majority of the recruiting over the years, so I expect recruiting to continue to roll along. Of course, Coach Rozelle did a lot of recruiting as far as the pitchers and evaluating as far as the pitchers, but I think that Cliff Galvin and Jeff Palumbo made the initial contact on a lot of those guys. So I expect that to continue at a high level. And Coach Palumbo's a guy, and I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it, he's a future head coach in the making. Very detail-oriented, very composed coach, very experienced, recruits at a high level, and he's Cliff Galvin's right-hand man. So keeping him around as long as possible, and especially not losing him in the same offseason you lose Pete Biscano, the director of ops, Coach Rozelle, is crucial. So glad to see that promotion for Coach Palumbo. Couldn't happen to a better guy.
Do we know why Dan left? Is it because it's an SEC job? It just seems like, I was telling the guys, it's not like I'm trying to make controversy. It just seems like, I said if he ever left or Palumbo left, it would be a head coaching job. So I was just a little puzzled why he would go to just a pitching coach, like another job.
From my understanding, it was money related. He got a pretty significant raise.
Okay.
And he also got a 2-year deal. So, which is, if you look at Kentucky's situation, there's a chance if they have another bad year, their coach is going into his 4th year. He just made staff changes. They've been trending down. If they have another bad year, it's not out of the realm of possibility that the head coaching change is made. So Coach Rozelle did at least get the financial security of a 2-year deal. He got a raise. Personally, I'm still a little surprised he left. I know he loves Greenville. It's not like he wasn't making good money here, but
right.
I guess it's just the chance to really take that step to the SEC,
right.
Get a pay raise. And to be honest, if he goes there and Kentucky turns it around and they have a big year on the mound and they go to the NCAA tournament, a lot of it will probably be pitching oriented, and from that point forward, Coach Rozelle could probably move up the ladder even more. So it's a gamble in terms of you're leaving a stable situation here, but you're also, getting a raise with some financial security, and you have the chance, obviously, to continue to move up the ladder if that's what he wants to do.
Guys, I think it's time to shift gears to football.
All right. Go for it.
Well, I don't have anything right off the top of my head, so one of you guys ask the
I got some stuff. Steven, I've just been really impressed with, I know that everybody thinks I'm an apologist for Coach Houston, but you're the recruiting
guru.
Who
thinks that, Dave?
What's that?
Who thinks that?
I don't know. I'm just saying that. But the recruiting expert, obviously on the podcast with us right now, can you give us an evaluation? These coaches are working their tails off and getting some really good recruits, in my opinion, but I'm not the expert like you. Do you think that that's fair?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think they've taken a small step forward from what Scotty Montgomery did last year, and I thought Scotty Moe had his best recruiting class last year as part of the 2019 class. And so for them to come in as a staff that's mostly been at the FCS, of course, you've got some former FCS coaches up there as well. I've honestly been pleasantly surprised with how they've done recruiting-wise. I knew they would have some success because I've heard Coach Houston has done a heck of a job luring transfers and some FCS caliber players to JMU the last few years. But to kind of handle the increase in scholarships that you can use at FBS versus FBS, and then, take the guys they have, handle some of the recruiting situations they have that they probably didn't have to do at James Madison. I think they've done it flawlessly. And it was one of the questions I had was, could they recruit at the FBS level and kind of continue to build the talent that Scotty Montgomery started to accrue towards the end of his tenure? And I think they have, and they've picked it up a notch. So you combine that with their coaching prowess, and to me, I think it's still, I was all about the Mike Houston hire when they made it, and I'm still all about it. I think he's going to do great things here and turn it around fairly quickly. And but no, they've recruited at a high level. The Mason Garcia kid, I talked about it. He's an NFL talent. There's no doubt in my mind. If they get him into school, he's the type of guy that could push Holton Ahlers towards the end of his career because he's that good. So I'm very impressed with what they've done.
You made the comment if they get him into school. Does he have any grade issues or anything?
He does have some academic stuff he's got to overcome. When I was down there, I went to go visit him for 24/7 Sports, do an evaluation piece on him in May, I believe. And his coach said, one of the big things that he has to do is take care of some stuff in the classroom. If the recruiting period ended today and he had to enroll in college, I don't think he would meet the requirements, but he's still got 2 semesters left. He made progress in the spring, and I think there's a good chance ECU will get him into school in the end. You're talking about a guy, if he had the grades right now, he'd probably have an offer from Alabama. He camped there, and from talking with some Alabama people, they really loved what he did at the camp. But ECU's in a position where it can take a risk on a guy, and I think, they feel at the end of the day, Garcia is a smart enough kid that he's going to make the progress he needs to make to get into school. And from talking with him, I think he's a smart kid. There were just some outlying factors that got him behind on schoolwork at the beginning of his career before he really realized he was going to be a D1 prospect.
Yeah, we spoke with this private quarterback coach that's been working with him, and he talked about he encouraged Garcia to go ahead and make his decision, stick with his commitment, and concentrate on academics.
Yeah, and I think that was a big part of it. I talked with his head coach and his coaching staff, and they actually have a former ECU alum, I think is the offensive line coach there, who's a big ECU fan, and he obviously didn't push Mason Garcia in any direction, but we kind of talked off the record, and he was obviously hoping that Garcia picked ECU. But the staff there was really supportive. They know the type of talent he has. When you got schools like Virginia Tech, Ole Miss, Alabama coming to see you, you're a pretty good talent. So ECU coaches I know are very happy to get his commitment, and you got to credit even the previous staff. Tony Peterson was the first coach to offer him. They had him in camp last year. And then Donnie Kirkpatrick, I think the second call he made when he got the job was to Garcia after seeing his film. So the new staff picked it up, and they've by far been the most consistent school recruiting him.
I had a question about.
Go ahead, Dave.
I haven't heard some behind. I was trying to ask the guys before we interview. What's the status of Travion Freshwater?
Nothing official at this point. I do know that ECU feels more optimistic about his chances of getting into school.
Okay.
I've heard that there's a situation that he could make it into school as what's called an academic redshirt, where a guy who doesn't quite meet the eligibility requirements but is just shy. The NCAA passed a new rule, I think 5 or 6 years ago, or that went into effect a couple years ago, that guys could get into school as an academic redshirt. They could be a part of the team, but they're not allowed to play year one because they're redshirt and obviously get ahead academically. So it sounds like that's a possibility. And obviously you'd rather do that, get them into school, have them work out, have them practice, rather than go JUCO, lose eligibility, potentially blow up recruiting, or go to prep school and have the same thing happen. So if it ends up working out, I honestly think that's a huge win for Coach Houston's staff.
Definitely. Talk about this year's team and the quarterback situation. Everybody assumes Holton's going to be the starter, obviously, but I kind of get the feeling from Coach Houston that Reed's going to get his shot. Is that just Coach Houston making sure Reed doesn't transfer, or do you think there'll be a legitimate competition?
Yeah, I expect Holton to start at the end of the day. I think that his personality, his style fits exactly what this coaching staff wants. He's a natural leader. He's physical. The staff is all about physicality. He can run. The staff wants to run the ball. Now, I'll be honest, I watched practice a lot last year. Just go off practice, Reed Herring looks like a great quarterback. He can throw. He's got a great arm. But when he got into a game and he felt some of that pressure, he just wasn't as effective, and he got banged up. So, I still think Reed Herring's a very capable quarterback, and I think they're probably seeing him in practice and being like, wow, this guy's pretty good. I mean, there's a reason he was a starter last year for half the season. He just didn't have the offensive line to protect him. So, yeah, I think there will be a competition per se. I personally will be pretty shocked if Holton Ahlers is not the guy come August 31st and for the foreseeable future just because of his style and the versatility he brings. But I also think there's something to be said. You want to have two capable quarterbacks. I'm not sure they have faith right now in Gag or Flynn to go out there and operate at a high level. And Holton, we know, can easily get hurt with his style. So, yeah, if it's a competition, make it a competition for most of preseason camp and then anoint a starter. And at that point, obviously the guys are going to stay in the program more than likely. And if Reed continues to practice at a high level and Holton slips up, anything can happen. But I do expect Holton to be the guy for this year and for the long haul.
Steve, and sticking with the offensive side of the football, one of the areas that Coach Houston and Coach Shank coming in were very skeptical about, and understandably so, with the offensive line. But Coach Houston's reiterated time and again how he's been pleasantly surprised with the talent there and how they've performed in the spring and workouts this summer. So can you talk about that? I know the left side, particularly with Deontay Smith and Cortez Herring, really seems to be strong.
Yeah, I think they feel good about the experience on the left side, and I think they feel good about the depth on the interior. Obviously, it was, revealed this offseason that John Spellacy would be able to rejoin the team after getting cleared medically. That adds a guy with, I believe, 17 or 18 starts at center under his belt back into the fold. Heading into his junior year, you've got Peyton Winstead, who started games at center. You've got Brandon Pena, who can snap the ball, spin all spring as the number one center when Winstead and Spellacy were sidelined. You've got Fernando Fry, who can snap the ball. You got Trent Holler, who comes in as a pretty talented true freshman who can snap it, and then Jason Fournette, a walk-on who played some last year. So 6 centers that can snap the ball, and a lot of those guys can play guard too. So you're going to have a big competition on the right side of right guard, which is a question mark. Sean Bailey ran in the spring as the number one right guard as a junior. He's not very experienced, but he's huge. He's got some upside. And then you've got a guy like Pena or Winstead who could flip over there. Fernando Fry started a few games there last year as well. So a ton of bodies on the interior, really. My question marks come at tackle. Obviously, I love Deontay Smith, but, his backup right now, I think, is a redshirt freshman and Noah Henderson. Right tackle is a question mark. They like sophomore Matt Morgan, but he's inexperienced. And he's backed up by JUCO Bailey Malovic, who doesn't have any D1 experience. So, to me, the interior is pretty set. The tackle positions will be two to watch, just in terms of depth and who emerges at right tackle in preseason camp.
First time, long time, we haven't came into the season with a star wide receiver like Zay Jones, Trayvon Brown, Justin Hardy. Who's going to be the number one receiver this year?
Well, I think there's a lot of candidates, and there's really not any definitive answers. If you held a gun to my head, my prediction will be Blake Prohl emerges as the guy. I mean, he was not even 100% during the spring. He was rehabbing his shoulder, wearing a red jersey, no contact really allowed, and was making play after play in practice. Just it was tough to guard. Made some incredible catches in the end zone on the sidelines. I really think if he can continue to progress physically, stay healthy, and block at a higher level, he's got, kind of a go-to guy type persona about him. Leroy Henley is another guy came in with the same class, same type of deal, dealt with injuries, but he's got good speed, can be a vertical threat. I expect him to take a step forward. And then, this is the year for DeAndre Ferrier. We say it every year, seemingly, but this is his senior year. It sounds like he's kind of finally matured into the leader he needs to become as a redshirt senior, fifth-year guy, familiarity with Donnie Kirkpatrick, having been recruited by a rough staff. So I think those three guys are going to be the main targets. Taj Deans as a junior, kind of an X factor. One day he looks great in practice, the next day he disappears. So what is going to happen with him? He's got good size. And then the one to watch that I really think could be a sleeper is Andre Pegues, 6'3", 200-plus pounds, red zone type threat. For sure, I think he will be a good option to go to near the end zone.
Not a believer in Snead, Tyler Snead.
Yeah. I mean, Snead is obviously a sleeper as well, and he's one of those guys that I honestly forget about sometimes because of failures emergence. But he's just solid in every aspect, and he's going to get some looks at return in the return game. So Snead is a guy for sure that I could see being on the field at the same time as Carrier when they go 4 wide and want to have two inside receivers. And then just Hatfield, a true freshman, very raw, but probably the fastest guy on offense. So I expect him to play a lot too.
What's Snead's scholarship situation? I had heard rumors, he had been put on scholarship and then taken back off. Is that true? Or?
No. So I asked Coach Houston. I think it was July. He's been put on the scholarship now, and he's on full ride.
Okay, it's a bad rumor.
Yeah, I think the situation there was they had to wait till a certain point to put him on scholarship, and I think that came this summer just because put a walk-on scholarship while he's living on campus, and in the first year, I think it counts towards the class he came in with. So they had to wait to a certain point, and I think get him off residential school property to give him a scholarship.
I had a question about Kyle's favorite position, running back. I thought he would ask that, but I'll ask it now. Am I overreacting? But it seems like Coach Houston is not 100% confident at what's in the running back room, so to speak, with looking at other possible options to bring in.
Well, I think he's just more or less worried about the lack of speed there. I think he likes Penix. He likes Sean Howe. He likes the freshman Demetrius Mooney, but there's no real speed in terms of this guy's going to take a handoff and go 70 yards to the end zone. And I think they tried to address that in the grad transfer process. I heard the name Amir Razul from Florida State, but last I checked, it didn't sound like it was going to work out. I'm not sure if something's changed on that front or not, but that was the name I was hearing. He was a track guy. So they wanted to add some speed. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it, but I know he likes Penix, his physicality. I just think they don't like the fact of not having a non-home run hitter on offense, which is why I think Hatfield will play.
Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, it looks to me like we got some depth issues on the D-line.
Yeah, I mean, to me, depth issues on the D-line, depth issues in the secondary. I do like some of the bodies at linebacker. But, yeah, the defensive tackle position is worrisome. Really liked the two starters in Alex Turner and Jalen Price, but after that it gets sketchy. Hosey Badri, they brought in from JUCO, so you got to like that as a backup option. And you got to like a guy like D'Angelo McKinney, who's at least been in the program. But then after that, Chandler Medeiros, another defensive tackle, got hurt. He's questionable for the season. And then you're probably going to have to play a freshman or two. So you really want to stay healthy at defensive end and defensive tackle, to be quite honest.
Well, that's one of the things.
While we're on the D-line, one of the things that really stood out to me about the two deep is how we only have 3 guys that were heavier than 245 pounds.
A D end or D tackle?
Just across the board. Obviously, you have Turner and Jalen Price, but outside of them, the most recent depth chart I saw around the conference media days, we only had 3 out of our top 8 that were heavier than 245.
So, from what I've been able to gather, and I know for a fact those weights haven't been updated since the freshmen enrolled last year. So, let's say a guy like D'Angelo McKinney, I think he's listed at 236 or something like that. He played last year at 260, 250 at minimum. He's probably at least 270 now. You've got a guy in Zamir Faison who's probably listed at 235. He's more, probably 250, 260 now. So a lot of these weights, especially the returning guys, have not been updated and just aren't accurate. And I don't know if that's just the case where ECU, Pirates.com, and Tom McClellan hasn't got the official updated weights yet, or if it's a case where maybe ECU's trying to play to a competitive advantage, and if they don't update the weights, their opponents are going to think that they're a lot smaller than they are. So, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think a lot of guys have added weights that haven't been updated yet.
Stephen, we're getting a little time for you here. Overall, this coming season, looking at the schedule, if somebody put that gun to your head again, what would you predict the results are going to be?
You know, I had it at 7 wins when I did the way too early schedule prediction. I think now I'm leaning towards 6-6. I just, you know, like we talked about, I worry about the depth defensively. I think they're going to make a lot of progress, and I think they're going to be in a lot of games. But I think the front seven depth and the use of the secondary will be a question mark. And if they can stay healthy and pull out some games late, I think they can definitely win 7 with the schedule. But I think a more fair prediction will be 5 or 6. And hopefully they find a way to surprise us. If you get a few surprise guys emerge on defense and offense, I think you can get to 7 and be bowl eligible. But I think 6, given the past few years, would be a successful year. Obviously, that wouldn't be enough for bowl eligibility if 2 of those wins are over FCS teams. But, you know, we'll see. I definitely believe in the staff, and whether they get to a bowl game or not this year, I think we'll see a ton of progress.
Personally, I think 5 and 7 would be a successful season after what we've been through.
That is true.
Well, I was going to say, too, Stephen, the game that keeps coming back to me in my mind as far as looking at the schedule, I hate to say must win, but as far as, like, I think 7 wins, but the game to me that we need desperately is that Temple game on Thursday night. I don't know what they've got coming back or anything like that, but that's the game that really is kind of a bellwether game, and the October part of the schedule seems like that's the hardest. So
we say it every year, man. Temple is the key game, the turning point, and ECU has not been up for that game or been able to stick around in that game for a number of years now, and I think that would change this year. I think it'll be a much more competitive game, and I agree. If I had to predict it today, I'd probably predict a Temple win because they do have a lot coming back, but they also have a new coach as well and some question marks. So, yeah, I mean, that is a key game. Let's say if ECU wins that game and they, you know, go 3-1 in the stretch versus Navy, ODU, Gardner-Webb, and William & Mary, at that point you're looking pretty decent for a bowl game. So we'll see. But that I agree, that Temple game will be huge.
If we beat Navy and Temple, I'm going 8 wins. I'm changing all that. And remember, guys, the week after Temple, we got USF. So if we don't get Temple and we get USF, things could all equal out.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's a very winnable game as well.
Well, Stephen, before we let you go, we know you've got somewhere else you need to be. Can you talk about obviously the website, and do you have any deals going on in the summertime right now or for Hoist the Colors?
Yeah, so we've been running this deal for a while, but a lot of people, I don't think, realize it. But you can sign up for your first month right now for $1 and or also get an annual subscription for 30% off on Hoist the Colors. And we're going to have a ton of content come preseason camp, which starts August 2nd. Players report August 1st. So really looking forward to that. But, yeah, things are about to turn up full throttle on Hoist the Colors, so definitely check us out, hoistthecolors.net.
All right, Stephen, appreciate you, man, so much. You're awesome. Thank you for that's one of my daily routines is to check Hoist a few times, and I know Bubba and Kyle as well as we're members. Thank you so much, and definitely look forward to having you on again real soon.
All right, guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Igoe. I tell you what, that guy has been rock solid for this podcast, and I told him, I sent him a text, and you know this, Kyle, because you're part of the team, you, me, and Bubba, that every time Igoe comes on, the number of listens, I don't know what it is. The dude's special, and he's special because he came on the first episode. I needed a guest.
Well, see what we do, Dave. We share it on Hoist the Colors, and everybody on Hoist the Colors likes
That's true.
So that's why they listen to it.
That's true, and all the social media. So, and Igoe, I mean, who wouldn't like Igoe? Igoe he listens to our podcast. He's probably running a few miles right now on the treadmill. I know he listens to us while he works out. So, Igoe's the man, and you know, Kyle and I love wrestling, and it's very easy to put over Igoe when he's not a bad dude.
He has to keep up with his alter ego.
There we go. Hey,
Bubba, where did you go, man? I was putting you over. Me or you were wrestling terms talking about putting people over. I was putting you over and you weren't there.
I was getting ready. I was getting ready for the funeral. And remember, it's the death objective.
Oh, that's right. I'm
okay,
sorry.
all right.
Yeah,
multitasking. I'm sorry. We'll definitely have some major. We'll let you slide. But Bubba, we were talking about the very fact of about just having Igoe on. I tell you, basketball. If you look at right now, this is the best the program has been as far as athletically in a good while. And I'm just tickled to death with even the non-revenue sports. I mean, can you guys name one sport right now that we're going, God, that's abysmal? Just like with when we had Julie Torbett. I mean, the volleyball team, I remember because I love Clip Brock and Pirate Radio, but I know he's been the PA announcer, and there was a time when, you remember, Bubba, when we had her on, I mean, they only won a few games. There was seniors on the team that they'd only won like 6 matches in their entire career. And so
yeah,
think that would be like
three straight 2-win seasons or something.
Yeah, and so that was Terry Holland did an excellent job hiring Julie Torbett, and she turned the program around, and that was one that came to mind that was just like, oh my God. I mean, it was so bad, guys, that I normally didn't. I admit now since Julie's took over, I've really followed the program a lot closer for volleyball. But it got so bad that I was like, it was kind of like on a watch. Can they win a game this year? Please win a game. Please, ladies, I hope you can win a match. So I was following the program because I was praying that they could at least win one game, and I think they only won like 2 or 3 or something. But that's the reason why I started following the program, and I'm ashamed to admit it.
Sure it is, Dave. Sure it is.
Well, you have different reasons why you follow the program, but it's a family podcast. So, anyway, I think overall we've got to be very, very excited about it. It's
Dave, it's what you're trying to say. Kyle's a big proponent of beach volleyball at ECU.
Hey, I will sign up for that. I'll be the number 2 or 3 guy to sign up for season tickets. I love that. I'm sorry. I know I'm married and everything. I'm sorry, but you know what I love that sport. I love volleyball, and that when the Olympics and everything.
Okay, Dave, you're still a man. You're still a man, and you still find women attractive. That's why you married one. And so
you think people will be lining up for those courtside seats?
Oh my God, they could. Hey, you know, like how they have stuff. They'd be on StubHub. They'd be on StubHub for about. Kyle would keep selling his tickets for like $200 or $300 a piece.
I'm not selling my tickets, Dave.
Oh, okay. You'll sell mine then.
Yep.
I'll take a profit. I'll ask about you about the game and the match, how it went. But anyway, are you ready for the next guest, guys?
Yeah.
Bob, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to that interview now. We caught up with a former WNCT sports anchor over the last 2 or 3 years or so, and that's Zach Maskavich. And let's talk to Zach right now.
Well, one of the great things about doing the podcast is you get a chance to meet a lot of the great members of the local media. And, Bubba, we have another special guest.
Absolutely. A guy that folks in Eastern North Carolina have seen on WNCT. You've also heard him on Pirate Radio, even here recently on the Sports Bar with Clip Brock. Zach Maskavich. Zach, welcome in.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely want to have you on. Obviously, there's many different angles we talk. Certainly, one of the things that comes to mind is your time with WNCT covering the Pirates. What do you think of this year? I know we had a chance to see spring football. I want to start out of the gate there with Mike Houston. A lot of people at this point of the year getting ready for Pirate football over a month now. What do you think about Mike Houston and company?
I think that he definitely has the program trending in the right direction. This is my second job in TV. I started out in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is pretty close to Harrisonburg, and I was actually at Mike Houston's introductory press conference at James Madison University. So I kind of got a glimpse of how Mike Houston comes in and takes over a program, and obviously he led James Madison to a national championship before coming here to ECU. It's hard for a coach to lose a press conference, but I've actually seen what he does, what he says in the press conference, and how he backs it up, and I think that he's saying all the same kinds of things he said at James Madison, and I have no reason to believe that he can't back up what he's saying. As much as Pirate Nation didn't like Scotty Montgomery, Mike Houston's not exactly inheriting a bare cupboard. We got to see Holt Nailers for the first time last year as a true freshman. I think he's only going to improve here in his sophomore year. He still has weapons around him. It'll be interesting to see how the defense handles things. Obviously, that was a big knock on Scotty Montgomery's tenure here at East Carolina. But I really think that Mike Houston has the Pirates trending in the right direction. I don't know if they win 7 games and go to a bowl, because that's what they would have to do this year, but I think they're going to be right on that doorstep of 6, 7, 8 wins. I'm guessing between 5 and 8, somewhere in that neighborhood. They definitely have the opportunity and chance to do it, and I think that with Mike Houston at the helm, the next few years look bright for the Pirates.
Especially when you look at recruiting, another big one today. How do you pronounce that first name, last name Hudson? How do you pronounce that first name, guys?
I think it's Taj, but I'm not 100% sure. But I would guess Taj.
And he looks like he's the real deal. It looks like the level of recruiting, and obviously the recruiting wars, if you will, with the different schools. Mike Houston and company, they've really done a nice job with airplane rides, car rides, whatever they have to do to get the best talent that we possibly can get at East Carolina. And if we can get 4 or 5 star, we're not going to get 5 stars certainly, but if you can steal a 4-star, most of the guys are going to be 2 or 3 stars at East Carolina. But I think I saw a thing with Deion Sanders. It's not about the star beside your name. It's about the character of the person, obviously what kind of they are a kid in the classroom, what kind of they're a model citizen, and then from there, what kind of athlete they are. And I think that's one thing that I don't think we're going to have nearly the problems we've had in the past, maybe with off the field kind of stuff. I don't know, but that's one thing with Mike Houston. I don't think he's going to. I know he's not going to tolerate that kind of stuff off the field.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to stand for any off the field nonsense. I don't think any coach really likes that off the field nonsense kind of stuff. But going back to the recruiting, that's the beauty of college football, is that you find guys that fit your system. In the NFL, the coach doesn't really have that power. Eventually, the coach will get run out if the players aren't playing in his system. But in college, you get to find the guys that are going to fit the way you want, think the way you want them to think, and play the way you want them to play. And I think Mike Houston, he's done nothing but prove that he can win from the Citadel. I mean, the Citadel is one of the hardest programs to recruit at in the country.
Right.
They're getting guys that couldn't hack it at Army or Navy, or Air Force, and by no means are those easy schools to get into, obviously. But you're getting the lower-ranked guys that still want that intense military-style schooling, such as VMI, the Citadel. Those, in my opinion, are 2 of the hardest schools to recruit at in the country. Mike Houston went to the Citadel, and he won almost immediately. Changed that program around, and they haven't really been the same since once Houston's guys kind of went through the program. So if that tells you that he is a guy that can win, he's a guy that can recruit. As much as everybody knocks on Scotty Montgomery was a decent recruiter. I don't think he was a great X's and O's guy. And I think that Houston's kind of the package where he's the X's and O's guy and he's the recruiter, and he's shaking up a lot of things in East Carolina. They're going to do a lot of things differently this year. Even with the media. I know he's changing the media availability around a lot and kind of trying to control the story, trying to control when players are available, who can talk to the media, who can do whatever. So Houston's definitely running a top-notch program, a program like you would expect one of the Power 5 schools to be running. And I think that Houston will enjoy that success. I don't know that it's this year per se, but I think it's going to be within the next 3 to 4 years for sure.
Well, Zach, it's funny that you mentioned that. Hopefully, I love Brian. He's a friend of mine. Hopefully he won't mind me saying, but speaking of the media and the treatment of the media, the one thing I remember, he was simply out there at the time. He was trying to white balance, for people to know what that means. He was trying to white balance his camera, and powers that be at the football operations thought that he was filming, and they came down on him. And he didn't like that so much. I'll just say that. I'm not going to say what he said because he's not on the podcast, and it's a family-friendly podcast. But a guy like Brian Bailey has been around, and he made that known since '84. You don't mess with Brian Bailey. That's my opinion. But anyway.
Yeah. Bailey's when you get on Bailey's bad side, he can unleash it on you pretty quickly. I've seen it happen firsthand before. But no, Bailey's a great guy. Nobody likes ECU more than Brian Bailey, and respects the craft more than Brian Bailey. It was an honor that I had the chance to spend 2.5 years learning from him, working with him, and he's definitely a TV legend, a Greenville legend, and a guy that doesn't take nothing from nobody. So he'll let you know when he doesn't like what you're thinking, especially if he's not in the wrong. If he's in the wrong, he'll apologize, but if he's not in the wrong, he'll let you know.
Well, I can tell you, somebody that worked with him in the '90s. I didn't work with him, obviously, during the time like you have recently, but he's mellowed out a lot, my friend, compared to the 1990s.
I'm sure. Brian Meador's told me some stories before. That's when they used to work together. So, yeah, I'm sure that I got a much more tame version of Bailey than some people that came before me.
The kinder, gentler Bailey.
Yeah,
for sure.
But guys, kind of along those same lines, what you were saying in terms of recruiting, Zach, you made a great point as far as the way Coach Houston's won with different types of kids and different systems and the places he's been with LR and then the Citadel and then, of course, JMU. But also along the lines with recruiting now, a lot of these guys that we're getting commitments from, yeah, they have a lot of P5 offers, quite a few of the 17 do, but then they also have a lot of those academy offers, be it Air Force, Navy, and/or Army. So that's something, we're getting a quality kid in addition to a quality athlete.
Yeah, for sure. There's not a knock on the kids that are getting the Service Academy offers. Those are the type of athletes that not only want to go through that grind that a football training camp is going to provide them, but what the grind of the military is going to provide them, which is going to be infinitely different than going through 2-a-days. I don't think they do 2-a-days anymore, but going through a hot summer practice with pads on has nothing to compare to what you're going to go through in boot camp and preparing to serve our country. So they're definitely a good quality athlete, but they're never usually sought after by the Alabamas or the Clemsons of the world. They're gonna give you their all the time, and I know that's the coach's kind of player, and I think that Houston's gonna find that balance of guys that are gonna go out there and give it their all, and he's also gonna find the guys that are gonna go out there and they're gonna compete in the NFL and they're gonna work to get drafted, get invited to the combine, which is something that we really haven't seen an ECU player get. Last year we didn't see any ECU players get invited to the combine. I know we had Zay Jones a few years ago.
Justin Hardy.
As far as ECU is concerned, I think that they're going to get the right quality player in there, and you guys know better than anybody, and the audience knows better than anybody, that the player that succeeds the most at ECU is the guy that has a chip on his shoulder, the guy that's going to come in here and want to prove everybody wrong and show them why an Alabama didn't offer them, why a Clemson didn't offer them. They're going to come to East Carolina and they're going to show out and put on the show for Pirate Nation. So I think that Houston knows that. Houston's very familiar with what the East Carolina mindset is. He's going to go out and find those players and try to get them on the right track as soon as possible.
And Zach, a few minutes ago, you brought up Media Day, and Dave, I want to mention this while we're on this topic, is with Media Day, Coach Houston is doing things a little bit differently. Instead of having it a couple days that Saturday after the guys report, he's doing it the day of Meet the Pirates on August 17th, and we've talked about that on the podcast, how that could be good because you actually have some things change over those first 2+ weeks of camp as opposed to just basically kind of reiterating what happened after spring ball or then maybe some things during the summer.
Yeah, it's definitely good to give the guys a little bit of time to comment on, because a lot of media members are going to ask, what's the biggest difference between Scotty Montgomery and Mike Houston? That's going to be a question that's going to be asked of the players a lot. And in the first couple of days, they're not going to have a real answer. They might say something that's a good soundbite that he changes everything. But after a few weeks of it, you'll be able to tell which guys are really telling you the truth, that are telling you that the culture has completely changed, and that takes time. It takes time to change the culture. And Houston had a whole spring with them, but this fall camp is really going to tell the difference. And the weeks before, the days before, leading up to the game at NC State is when you're really going to get a good feel for how he changed the culture and how the guys are buying in, and that's only time can tell how it all plays out. But he and all the players are saying all the right things right now, and it sounds like the message is coming out of things changing for the positive.
I want to ask you, as far as covering the Pirates, football, basketball, baseball, whatever, are there any funny stories behind the scenes that you want to share or can share on the podcast?
A lot of the guys like Joe Dooley and Scotty Montgomery were very much business only guys. They didn't really show you their personality. They kind of came in, they answered the questions, they got out. The team that to me that was the most open, the most fun to cover was the baseball team. Cliff Godwin is a character through and through. He's a guy that loves to win more than just about anybody I've ever met. I've told everybody that normally when a coach wins a game, they're a lot easier to deal with as far as a media member is concerned. But with Cliff Godwin, he's actually easier to deal with after a loss because he's angry, but he's answering your questions. When he wins, he likes to just jump down somebody's throat as fast as he can and try to make jokes and like just kind of show somebody up. And when you're not on the receiving end of it, it can be really funny. But I've been on the receiving end of it a few times. I know Ronnie Woodward has definitely tasted a few blows. Stephen Igoe's tasted some blows of Cliff Godwin. But he's definitely the biggest character as far as the ECU coaches go. He's got a big ego and he's backed it up, and hopefully one day soon he takes the Pirates to Omaha like Pirate Nation's been wanting.
It's funny you mentioned that because Zach, I know you were not here in the '90s, but Coach Logan was notorious for that. It's funny when you said that. I can relate. That's when I first started my media career in the '96, and he's the kind of guy, the exact same mold. He literally, when East Carolina would lose, it would be just kind of like somber, few words, let's get this thing over with, get on a plane. Or if it was there at obviously the Ward Building, it would be pretty quick. However, when we would win, oh my God, it would be like we have even that thing we did from like a montage in the 90s, 94-3, but 98-3, but where he said you go for it every time at East Carolina. We had lost the game 10-9 to West Virginia. We win the next week, and he just went off on the media. And when we had to win, you would have thought we lost by 4 or 5 touchdowns. Instead, he was just gloating and like in your face. So when you said that, it triggered a memory.
And the thing about that really stood out, Dave, is that was the '96 season, and that was the first year you could go for
2.
No, not go for 2, but go for overtime and
overtime. I meant to say sorry.
So
that was a great era, certainly for the Pirates. I wanted to ask you, Zach, as far as you mentioned Cliff with Coach Dooley, what are your thoughts on? Speaking of recruiting, you and I were covering the basketball season. Obviously, we were disappointed. I thought we should win a few more games. We didn't. But considering the talent level in American, Coach Dooley had no choice pretty much to tell the guys, hey, appreciate your, being here, but you're not going to get a lot of playing time. You really need to do the transfer portal. What do you think about the overhaul of the basketball program?
Yeah, I think the writing was kind of on the wall with a lot of those guys. That I think there was a point in the year where you could kind of see Coach Dooley from the beginning of the year where he was he was an energetic guy on the sidelines always, but I think that energy kind of changed, and you kind of saw the writing on the wall that he was like, this might have been a little bit harder of a job than I expected when I took it over as far as the current talent on the roster. And while there were some talented guys on the roster, it just didn't really fit Joe Dooley's system. And I think that like we talked about with football at junior college sports, that Joe Dooley's going to find guys that fit his mold, that remind him of the Bill Self kind of guys that he was getting at Kansas, and the success that he saw at almost every stop he's been at. So he'll go out and find those guys. It's just a question of when and how long it takes to get them. Obviously you had Jaden Gardner, and Jaden Gardner was phenomenal his freshman year, but the overhaul that we've seen, I think I tweeted it out a while ago about the roster that could have been last year for ECU. If you're talking Jeremy Shepard, Elijah Hughes, Kentrell Barker, Jaden Gardner, and Dang Riak. I mean, that's a team that is going to win a lot more games than the team that was put out on the floor last year. And then you would have, I guess, Sean Williams, the reigning at the time AAC Rookie of the Year, coming in off the bench. That would have been a team to reckon with. But the Lebo era was obviously what it was, and a lot of guys transferred out, and Kentrell left a year early. BJ Tyson would have been a year too late for this Dooley era anyway. Jeremy Shepard gets kicked off the team. Sean Williams has off the court trouble during the Lebo and Dooley era. So it's just been a roller coaster for ECU, and it will be interesting next year because it's going to be all new faces and Jaden Gardner essentially. So I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how many games they're going to win. But again, with Dooley, he's a guy that's trending in the right direction. He's a guy that's gonna get this program better than when he found it. I don't know how good he gets it, if he leaves or whatever, but it's going to be better than when he inherited it last year when he leaves, or if he does leave. And that's kind of a credit to, all the administration changes that have been made. I mean, John Gilbert taking over has been a breath of fresh air for East Carolina. I know that a lot of Pirate fans will back that up, and just he's out. He's everywhere. I didn't see Jeff Comfer a lot of places. Whenever I spoke with Jeff, he was always very kind to me, and he was a nice guy, and he treated the media pretty fairly. But John Gilbert's like a man of the people. He's a guy that's going to show up in the jungle. He's a guy that's going to sit down with the Minji Maniacs. He's a guy that's going to roam the tailgate lots at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. So, John Gilbert's a man of the people, and I think that, like I said, he's a breath of fresh air for East Carolina, and he's gonna try his best to get Pirate Nation back to what people knew it before me. Because when I got here, I have seen nothing but losing outside the baseball team since I arrived in Greenville. But I know that John Gilbert has bright plans for this program and this athletic department, and it's going to be interesting to kind of be an outsider looking in as we go on through here, since my time in Greenville is kind of numbered.
So do you have, can you tell us, can we get breaking news? Do you have plans? That was one question I had for you. What's next for you?
I don't have breaking news as of yet. I got some things in the works, trying to finalize a few things to see what's going to happen. Whatever does happen, I've loved my time in Greenville. I didn't know much about Pirate Nation coming into this job. I knew that they had beaten Virginia Tech a few times in football during my life, but outside of that, I didn't really know much about ECU. I remember working in Charlottesville. I saw the baseball team come up and win a regional to go to a super regional. But that was the only thing I knew about Pirate Nation. I came down here and, I really enjoyed my time down here. One of my biggest regrets, and maybe I can switch it once I leave, is I never got to tailgate with Pirate Nation and then experience a football game in the stands at Dowdy-Ficklin. Now, I had a good time on the sidelines, but I feel like with a few Pirate beverages, it might be a little more fun.
What do you think about wanted to ask you too, what do you think about the Helmbank Tower being, now that we're going to have that with the opening of the new stadium will be September the 7th with Gardner-Webb. I know they're going to actually have that and meet the Pirates in some of their days coming up next month for the media. What do you think about that? It's obviously a big improvement than the double wide in the sky.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge improvement over what was there before. I got the chance to tour it probably 2-3 months ago.
Yeah,
we went. They gave a media tour of it, and it was just kind of a shell of everything. And I was like, yeah, this could look really cool. But I'm still friends with a lot of people that work within Pirate Athletics, and they tell me that it's really good. And there are a lot of guys that work within the program and the department just have nothing but good things to say about it. And it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be a good thing for the program, the football program especially. But as far as recruiting goes, I don't know that it helps out a whole lot, but as far as a media perception and outside perception, you can rent out the Town Bank Hall and have a wedding in there. I know that'll be huge for a lot of people that bleed the purple and gold of ECU, that they could maybe get married up in Town Bank and overlook Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. So I think it's nothing but improvements. It's a step in the right direction. I'm kind of jealous that I will not cover a football game up there at least next year. I don't think anyway, but we'll see how that plays out.
Zach, you're talking about covering a game at different venues in Dowdy-Ficklin specifically. I know one of the things that I mentioned to you that we may talk about is some of the top venues you've had the opportunity to attend either as a fan or while working, and not just football, but baseball, basketball, golf, you name it. What are some of the top venues you've had the opportunity to maybe a top 5 and then maybe a top 5 bucket list?
Yeah, so I've been very lucky to cover a lot of cool events. I was at the All-Star game down in Charlotte this past year, and that was a really cool event to be at. A lot of the playoff Hurricanes games this year were crazy loud and great atmosphere. But as far as couple of my tops that I've ever been to, and this top one is going to sound weird, but unless you experience it, you don't know. The Fargo Dome for North Dakota State is among the craziest places I've ever seen a football game. When I went to Talkin University, which is in the FCS, they played ECU a few years ago. they were in the playoffs, and I used to work for their athletics department right out of school, and I used to produce and call play-by-play of different sporting events. I was scheduled to be with the basketball team. We flew out and played Oregon State, and we lost Oregon State. The next day we flew to Fargo, and we were playing North Dakota State in basketball, but this was during the FCS playoffs. The football team was at Eastern Washington playing on the Red Inferno field, and Talkin won on a last-second quarterback sneak up the middle to go ahead and win the game, and that advanced Talkin to the national championship game. So the day before that game, New Hampshire was playing North Dakota State in the FCS semifinals. The winner goes on to the national championship game. I contacted one of the SIDs for North Dakota State, and I was like, hey, we're going to be in town. Any chance you can hook me up with any kind of ticket? I know it's going to be tough, but anything you can do would be great. And they hooked me up with like a standing room only ticket. I was like right next to the band. It was loud, it was packed, and New Hampshire started the game off with a pick six. So the Wildcats go up 7-0 in the Fargo Dome. I think I was the only person that cheered because New Hampshire is in Talkin's conference, and we had beaten them like by 40 points both times we played them. I was like, let's get New Hampshire in the national championship. We're going to relax them. So I go nuts, and everybody starts looking at me like, who is this guy? And then Carson Wentz and North Dakota State go on to just manhandle New Hampshire from that point on. And then, the next week or 2 weeks later, Talkin plays North Dakota State in the national championship. Carson Wentz wins North Dakota State's like 5th straight national championship. But that Fargo Dome game was insane. I've been to LSU in Death Valley. That was nuts. Talkin played them when I was still working there. And Talkin had a guy named Terrence West who went on to have a mediocre NFL career, got drafted by the Browns and played with the Titans and Ravens also. He was a stud when he was in college, though, and we were up 9-6 in the second quarter over LSU at LSU, and that was just an insane atmosphere. And then it all changed when Zach Mettenberger dropped back and beat our All-American corner on a fly route to a guy named Odell Beckham Jr., who just scored a 75-yard touchdown. From there on, it was a LSU blowout, but that was an insane atmosphere that I've seen. I've been lucky enough to go to, as a fan, an Orioles baseball game in the playoffs against the Detroit Tigers. If anybody's an Orioles fan, they'll remember Delman Young hitting a go-ahead double in the 8th inning, and that was probably the best sports moment of my life. I've never been just more, ecstatic. I grew up, when I was in elementary school, the Orioles were pretty good in the mid-'90s, obviously, and then they had that 14-year losing drought, which was most of my sports fandom career, just watching the Orioles be terrible. And then kind of being a young adult, seeing them win was one of the most euphoric moments of my life, seeing Delman Young hit that double against the Tigers. So I've been lucky enough to see a lot of really, really cool sporting events, and I just hope that continues. And in a few years, if you call me up, hopefully I have another top 10 that I have seen and can add to that. But I guess maybe I've also been to Duke Carolina basketball games. That was a huge bucket list thing for me. Seeing a game inside Cameron Indoor Stadium was huge. I grew up a Maryland fan back in the day. Before Gary Williams got fired, Under Armour kind of took over and changed the logo all around. I was a huge Maryland basketball fan. I grew up hating Duke. However, going into Cameron Indoor Stadium, seeing the Cameron Crazies was one of the top sporting moments I'll never forget in my life. So, like I said, I've been blessed. I've been extremely lucky throughout my career, and I can't wait to see what happens next. But there's so many great sporting events throughout this country that if you're lucky enough, try to experience as many of them as you can.
Dave, what about you?
What?
I was saying, what about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Sporting event-wise, I would think that, the Duke games, obviously I grew up in Durham. That was, I agree with you there, Zach. The Cameron Crazies are phenomenal. TV doesn't do how loud that venue is when Duke is playing. The biggest thing for me probably, I would say, you mentioned the Hurricanes. I think the loudest venue, and I love Dowdy Ficklen, so don't get me wrong, and there's been some loud moments that certainly in the early 2000s, I would say, with the basketball team at Williams Arena. But I have to say, probably the biggest sporting event I've been to was Game 1 of the Stanley Cup with the Hurricanes and the Edmonton Oilers. Hurricanes were down 3-1 going into the third period. I'll never forget how I literally walked into the men's bathroom, and there's an Edmonton Oilers fan, and he says, "Guys, why are you all so down?" He said, "I've seen a lot of hockey. Anything can change." And all of a sudden it's 3-2, then 3-3. And when the Hurricanes took the lead, it's 4-3. I've never heard a crowd that loud. It was like 19,000 people going absolutely nuts. I'm on the nosebleed. I'm in the nosebleeds, and it literally felt like the nosebleeds, like the whole top section, that 300 level, was bouncing. That's probably, to me, I've been to a lot of sporting events and a lot of great Pirate games, especially Dowdy Ficklin, but I think that's probably the loudest I've ever heard, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but I can't think of anything louder than the Game 1 of Stanley Cup in 2006.
I can't knock that because the media seating, I don't know what it was like before, but the media seating was literally above the last seat in the house for the fans, and just hearing it just the shake and like people go nuts, and then putting up the decibels for how loud the Caniacs were getting was truly mind-blowing. And I grew up in the Maryland, D.C. area. I've been to a few Capitals playoff games, and those have been really loud. But there was something special about this year's run for the Hurricanes that Raleigh and Eastern North Carolina and really the whole state of North Carolina backed, and it was a cool thing to experience.
They're a bunch of jerks. I think that's why we.
Guys, some of the top ones that I've been to, and in no particular order, and some of these I've been to an event, and then some of them just to see the venue, but right there at the top, if not the top, would be Wrigley Field. My dad took me there for my 13th birthday back in 1994, and that was back when the Expos were still in existence, so had the opportunity to see the Cubs play the Expos when they had Larry Walker and Marquise Grissom before he got traded to Atlanta. So that was neat, getting to see a couple games at Wrigley. If you guys have never been there, that should definitely be on somebody's bucket list if you're a baseball fan at all. Just all the anticipation of going, and it certainly doesn't disappoint. It's just like you would imagine it. Another one that would be right up there in the spring of 2015, my family and I on spring break, we had the opportunity to go to Hoosier Gym in Knightstown, Indiana, which is about 30 or 40 miles east of Indianapolis. So that was cool, getting to go to where Hoosiers was filmed. Also, Mikey Stadium up in West Point, getting to go to an East Carolina Army game in 1995 was awesome. And in early November, that venue is just unbelievable, and the drive along the Hudson River on game day was a lot of fun. Going to ECU, Florida in the swamp back in 2015 was a lot of fun, and getting to see that. And actually, we talked to Wayne Bolt earlier, and that's what he was talking about, just what a tremendously difficult atmosphere that was to play in and coach in. And then LSU, I have not seen a game there, but when the Pirates played in the New Orleans Bowl in 2012, we had the opportunity. Erin St. Ledger, who was actually in sports marketing at LSU at the time, she had played softball at ECU, so we had the opportunity to get a tour of the facility with her. And then also I've had the opportunity, been lucky enough to go to 2 Ohio State-Michigan games. One was back in 1990 when Kirk Herbstreit was the quarterback, and then also one in 1998 when Ohio State, I believe, actually beat Michigan, which was rare under John Cooper.
Yeah, you see, Zach had that where Bubba spends all of his time outside family life is he travels. He literally he's the guy. Bubba's the guy that says he sees a venue or he sees a game, and he gets in the car and drives like 12 hours to the venue, and then drives like 12 hours back over the game. I just don't have that kind of time.
No, it's not. It's certainly not that bad. It's just if I'm in the area and if I'm in a reasonable driving distance, I'm like, when am I going to come to Indianapolis again? So I got to check it out.
We need to ask your wife, Stacy, on that one, Simon.
Hey, and Dave, that's the funny thing. Believe it or not, that Knightstown gym, or Hoosier gym in Knightstown, I should say, that was actually one that she didn't mind and she enjoyed too. She didn't complain.
Yeah, well,
you always want to keep the wife happy.
Happy wife, no doubt. Well, Zach, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to miss you a lot. Miss having you on as a fan of your broadcast of what you do for local media. I want to thank you. A lot of people love you in Pirate Nation, and certainly we wish you the best. And don't be a stranger to the podcast. And I know wherever you land, it's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see when that happens.
Yeah, guys, really appreciate you having me on. Like I said, you guys obviously have my contact information. Hit me up. I'd love to come back on again at a later date, and hopefully I have an announcement on social media in the coming days, and we'll see. And if not, then I might still be here in the fall in Greenville and trying to freelance with ECU and those surrounding schools. So I won't be far away. Obviously, social media makes things a lot closer, and I really do again appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully the guy that replaced me, Nolan Knight, sees a little bit more winning from ECU football than I got the chance to see.
Thank you very much, Zach, for coming on. He's always been, I can honestly say, being a member of the media, and you guys are, but I know that I'm closer to Greenville, and he's always been very polite, very kind, and I knew that he would be a great interview as he was, and I'm praying that I'm hoping we can keep him locally, but I think that he's going to have bigger and better things, and appreciate his time. We got to get Double B on Brian Bailey. Hopefully I'll try to reach out him very soon, but love to have him on. I've known him since 1996, and we just hadn't been able to get our schedule. So, Brian, I'm coming after you. Hey, by the way, guys.
I don't think Brian knows how to listen to podcasts. He's too old.
I don't know, but he
didn't hear that. Somebody tell Brian to say that.
But anyway, we've got a lot of great guests coming up, and we told you about Ryan Robinson and Rick Menners coming on, former coach of Cincinnati and many.
Yeah, I got something I want to talk to Ryan Robinson about when we interview him Monday. I'll tell you what, guys, I get sick and tired of all we do is win, no matter what.
Oh, please stop it! Yes,
exactly. Celebration's all right. That's classic. But I think getting down in a pirate town would just be perfect after.
I think and I normally am not a favor of them. I can't stand them, but I'd like to see, since we have what is Still Life or whatever, why not we have like a tradition we start where we mix in for the old folks like Celebration in Purple Rain and getting down in a pirate town, and you got like several some kind of montage.
You want to change it up or a montage after a win? I think something besides all we do is win. I hate that outdated crap. It's not a classic. There's a difference between classic and old. That's just old.
Yeah,
and,
it was fun. It was fun when
it's
one of those songs, a top 40 song. It was fun for a year or two.
Yeah. And
the chewing gum has lost its flavor, especially.
Exactly.
I think it was fun during the Ruffin years because we were winning a lot. And then when you're in the Montgomery years and you get maybe three wins a year, we don't hear it enough anyway.
So I just don't like it. I'm sick of it. And like I say, and it doesn't have to be getting down in a pirate town. It can be something else. I just think getting down in a pirate town is unique to us.
It's a cool song.
It's got a cool little vibe. I mean, when you're walking out of the stadium. So, but anyway.
Getting down in a pirate town, Purple Rain. I mean, there are definitely other solid.
Yeah, but anyway, I want to let you know, guys, that I do know. First of the week, we definitely another guest we'll have on. As I want to transition, we've been talking a lot about it. We're finally going to have working out our schedule for Dana Shrink. She's coming on for Dana's Global Travel to talk about next July. We're going to have a huge. I don't know where you've been if you haven't heard. We're going to have a huge cruise. I'm so excited about it. Do you guys have your bags packed already? I mean, Bubba, I know you're always are very good at that. Bubba's like the best soldier in the world because the guy can pack a bag in like 10 minutes. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm terrible about that. So what I've learned to do
too, actually.
What?
I can also pack fast.
Okay.
I'm like Kellen Winslow Jr.
Yeah, you're like a good soldier. You're ready in like 10 minutes. For me, what I do is I try to pack ahead of time because I always forget stuff. And if I did that last minute, I'd be going on the cruise and having to buy everything on the cruise at like big time prices. So anyway, Dana's
I've done that a couple of times. I do pack fast, but one time I forgot all my toiletries. I had to go to the Kmart in Kill Devil Hills and buy all my toiletries at Outer Banks prices. And then another time I forgot socks. I didn't bring any socks with me, and I was going somewhere for 2 weeks. The last time I forgot something was the cruise that my family did before I got married. It was 2012, August of 2012. I'd never been on a cruise before, and I was like so excited and proud of myself that I'd packed and everything, and I had everything, and realized that when I got to Greenville to stay with my parents before we left, that I had no belt. I was like, oh, nice, I don't have a belt for my pants. So I had to get one in Charleston, one of my favorite towns like Kyle's, Charleston. Speaking of which, that's where we're going out of next July. I'm telling you guys, it's going to be tremendous. You may want to go there the night before, because what you can do, if you've never been on a cruise and you've never been to Charleston, obviously, you can spend the night in a hotel there, and you can leave your car there at the hotel. They'll have shuttle service from the hotel. Some of them do this to the port, and you can actually go right there and walk in with all your stuff. And then when you get done, you can call the hotel when we get back, and you can they'll come pick you up and take you back to your vehicle. You wouldn't have to pay for your parking there close to the port, which is about $90 for the week, or the 4 or 5 days we're there. But it's going to be tremendous. I don't know, Bubba, are you sold on it now? Stacy, have you talked to Stacy about it?
It's still to be determined. Just with my coaching and that sort of thing. I don't know for sure what my availability would be, but definitely an option.
All right. Well, Stacy and the kids can come in.
What are you coaching in July, Bubba?
Say that again.
What do you coach in July?
Tiddlywinks. Nice.
In July, what are you coaching? We'll talk about this off the air.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, exactly. I don't know, we lost it, but I know Kyle, you, and I know Jessica.
Yeah, me and Jessica are planning on going. We're going to get with Dana here in the next week or so, and book our cabin, and it'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Never been on a cruise. It'll be my first one, so looking forward to it, and it'll be fun to be on there with some friends and Pirate fans, and should be a good time.
And we're also going to invite, I know that we're not going to make any promises yet, but Kyle, when we've had the different interviews of Pirate players over the time, they actually have expressed interest, and so we're going to be reaching out to, we're not going to make any promises who, but there may be some former Pirate players, you never know, that come on.
Right, hopefully.
And different people. Maybe we can get John Gilbert to come on with us. That would be fun, or different people, but we'll see about. We're not going to make any promises.
Hey, we know Coach Houston likes taking cruises.
And it's in July when they, we'll invite, trust me, we'll invite everybody to come on, because if you're a Pirate, and even if you're not a Pirate and you want to be on a cruise, hey, well, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, we don't own the Carnival cruise ship there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like 2,000 or 3,000 people on a boat. They have to all be Pirate fans. The Carnival people will not. But you know what? We do travel well as Pirates, East Carolina, so that you never know, some different people we'll have on, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be very exciting. That's coming up the 16th and 19th of around that time of July. Charleston, we're going to I think it's the third day, we'll be in Nassau, the Bahamas. If you've never been to Nassau, it's absolutely gorgeous. I love Nassau. It's one of my favorite places, and we'll be there. We're going to have a night. We're going to have a social, so maybe we get Pirate Al. I'm going to call him out. Maybe Pirate Al will come with us, but we're going to have a social one night where we have a couple hours where we have a private party. So if you're part of the Sports Objective Pirate Cruise, you're the only ones that are going to be let in that party that night. And also we're going to do, I'm sure Kyle will sing some karaoke, I don't know. But we'll also do, I'm just joking, Kyle, putting you on the spot. But we're also going to do a private podcast where we're going to record on the ship. And we will release it when we get back. But if anybody's ever been on a cruise, the one thing that's terrible, by the way, Kyle, get ready for it. Don't even do anything with the internet. It's horrible. So there's no way in the world, even if we wanted to do a live podcast on Carnival, unless they tell me something that they can do to help us out, it's not worth our time. It would be absolutely unairable. Like,
I gotta pay for some Wi-Fi. I gotta be able to access my Facebook every now and then.
Well, they do have. I'm glad you mentioned that. They do. I would highly recommend, instead of getting the Wi-Fi, they have a thing you can do like $7 a day. I think it's something like that, where you can get social media. That's what you need to do. The social media is worth it. That usually works pretty well. But the internet is as bad or worse than dial-up.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, in 2019. So I'll just leave it with that. I don't know why it is, and I don't want to waste our time on the podcast, but I hope folks will do that. We're still working on getting the kinks out for, we'll have Friday morning football coming up very soon. We haven't forgotten that. And also we're just trying to get schedules ready, right, guys? For, I know, Kyle, we need to get all kind of like herding cats, but we are going to do our Sports Objective watch party where we watch former episodes. We're trying to, that's been hard with everybody.
Yeah, at this point, Dave, I don't know that we're going to get that done, brother.
We'll see. We'll see.
We're edging in on the season here.
Well, we'll see if we can get a few episodes. We'll try to see what we can get. Maybe a limited release. We'll see about that. We're trying on that. So, do you have anything? I know Bubba, you still there? I guess he had.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm good.
Right.
But no, I really didn't have anything else. But I did think when you brought up Kyle singing on the cruise, I think what's more romantic than having a nice Italian meal with Kyle singing "That's Amore"?
Oh my God!
That's Amore. Bells will ring, ding ding ding.
I'll tell you what. Right now, Kyle, I'll buy you two or three drinks and theirs are not cheap. Well, they're not too bad, but they're normal prices like you go to a club here. But I'll buy you a few drinks if you get
I
a
want a drinking pass, Dave. If you buy the drinking pass, I'll sing "That's Amore."
Oh, that's only $50 a day. I can't afford that. But by the way, folks, if you want to do a drinking package, it's $50 per day or something around that. Plus, everybody that's in the cabin has to buy a drinking package. So,
no, I didn't see that on Carnival's website. Are you sure that's still the policy?
That's what I heard, but we'll double check. We'll let the expert Dana Shrink. We'll actually get her to check on it.
All right, let's get Dana's number and then our social media, and let's get out of here.
All right, her number is, I believe it's 919-830-2161. You guys talk so I can double check. You put me on the spot. I think it's 919-830-2161. Let me double check. Hang on.
All right, David is double checking that number, Bubba, to make sure that we give the correct information and you're not just calling some random chick in Raleigh who doesn't know what you're talking about when you're talking about going on a cruise and the Sports Objective. You know, she thinks it's an obscene phone call.
Okay, yeah, 919-830-4161. I'm sorry. So 919-830-4161. Go ahead and call her. She's ready. She's available where she'll take your calls. And certainly she's had a lot going on recently with different packages and stuff she's working on. But I know we're going to have her on the first of the week for the podcast. She's very excited with all the interest. I've already people already. I mean, just Mike, I think it's about, for my family alone, I think it's 5 or 6 cabins. So she's already off a start. And then there's people that at my work, my daytime job, they're going to go, and then different people. So I've been inviting everybody. It's a huge party. Listen, if you're listening right now and you know a whole bunch of people that love to cruise, they're cruisers, they're called, the people that love to go cruising on a cruise, then you tell them this is your party too, right, Kyle?
Indeed, yeah. If you like going on a cruise, come on this cruise.
And hopefully we get Terry Gallagher. I can't believe he's a pirate scared of water. I just don't understand that. But anyway, to each his own. All right, guys, before we get out of here, I know we want to promote our social media, right?
Yeah, follow us on Twitter at TheSportsOBJ, on Instagram at The Sports Objective. Like and follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
All right, you got anything final, Mr. Kyle?
No, I'm good.
All right, appreciate you guys. I just want to thank, before we get off the podcast, I'll get a word with these guys, with Bubba and Kyle. We joke around a lot on the podcast. We have a lot of fun, but they've really been here for me recently. And I appreciate them very, very much for all that they've done for me behind the scenes. All right, until next time, for our weekend podcast, this is Dave Richmond for Kyle from LaGrange and Bubba Rosenbaum here on the Sports Objective Podcast.
You've been listening to the Sports Objective Podcast. Join us next time as the guys will be objective, and the objective is sports.